Welcome, everyone. My name is Nichel Anderson. I'm your host for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. In this particular week, we are focusing on episode 44 for March the 11th for my season 2, 2018 to 2019 season of my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond. In this particular episode, 44, it is entitled Lanko Advances Forward in Zimbabwe. In this particular one, I'm going to focus on Lanko. That's considered to be one of the initial Orions that when I wrote out this project of doing a podcast that featured on my passion and my film, a part of my purpose to write and to tell stories, to also to write literature that can help motivate other people in different genres that can encourage them to see the bigger picture, influence them, motivate them, and as well to talk about history, okay? Because I do love history. So in this particular podcast of mine that I started back in 2017, right? And this timeline where I wrote out 3 particular Orions. You have Echo, you have Lanko, and you have Nontu. If you wanted to follow up on that, what happened, go ahead and check out season 1, 2017 to 2018. Check out those episodes, and then moving forward to this season 2. Now, Lanko has been pretty much off the scene for a while when he actually opened up season 2 in September in 2018. Now we're focusing back on him once more. It's imperative that we do because he was sent on a mission to find Nontu. So in this particular episode, we're going to take a look at that, of what he's been up to in a way. Of course, some of those scenes were considered clip snippets that you have to be a patron. So in this particular podcast of mine, it is featured on mostly my theatrical production, mainly MOLIAE, which stands for Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt, and is a part of my it came from my book, Mitsrayim. That is available. If you wanted to purchase that, is available any bookstore that you normally purchase books. Now, MOLIAE is also a theatrical production in the sense that I've already have produced it stage type of medium, as well as short films, websodes. I even have an audiobook that I haven't released yet that I did a few years ago, waiting for what the production is currently in the phase of prepping for the prestige return of MOLIAE's stage play. Those dates have not been released yet, but they will soon, I should say, hopefully soon, that I can relay that information to those that are interested that will want to come out for the play of MOLIAE, which is a bigger production. So that's why I'm taking this time to get everything in place. It's going to be a larger production. I'm very excited about it. It will be the 3rd time MOLIAE returns back to stage. And with the bigger production, there will be characters. Some of these characters you're learning through this podcast timeline, which is before the time of Princess Armenia, and some characters that have already been rolled out either in the websodes, and that basically is during the time where Princess Armenia is on the scene. So for this particular highlight, and just also before I get to the highlight, is that this is a premium podcast. When I do these clip snippets, which is just part of the short story, to get the full short story, most of the time I'm revealing something that I don't actually release that publicly, is to become a patron of this podcast. You will see a direct link to my Patreon page where you can click on and get the full information how you can become a patron and get the full short story. Okay, so as well, I do have an app, so go ahead and check that out. You should be able to find that on the Apple Store as well as Google Play for this podcast. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the highlight right quick. I kind of touched on it in the beginning. Episode 44, Lanko Advances Forward in Zimbabwe. So here I'm focusing on where Lanko was trying to make an allegiance to a tribal leader in the south. He already made one up the north, which is Ateo, A-T-E-O, which Ateo, keep in mind that he's the brother of Sanel. And that came out, I believe, in episode 6. Yeah, episode 6, we discovered the main adversary against King Milan, and that's where Comrade Tata went to go to Sanel by receiving a message. And they're looking for somebody. And Sanel is actually a brother to Atero. And you meet Atero in season 2, which is the beginning few episodes, right, in season 2 last year. So at any rate, Lanko already formed this alliance with Atero, and it seems like he has some of his men down there where they're getting near to Nontu, because that was Lanko orders in season 2 return back in September of 2018. So we're going to follow up where Lanko was in the scene, and he is in the area about to do something that will advance his position to capturing Nontu. So the recap from last week, which was episode 43, Rulin speaks upon the new rule. That's where Rulin meets up with Nontu, and they both discover in their assumptions their true intention to win over not just the north but the south is important, because that's where Nontu is positioning himself to reveal himself on the stage of Tamat, which is Tamat, we're calling that earth in this time here, right? But then that's what they were calling it, and he is making it known, and Rulin is having a conversation. So I guess that was the person where he was going to go see, because you remember in the previous episodes back in later in the year of 2018, Rulin meets up with the elder Tahib. Tahib is the father of Queen Hagar, and in that domain is where Rulin decides to still meet up with this person. Turns out it seemed like it was Nontu. At least that's what we're getting, that piece there. And they're trying to see if they're going to make a deal to join forces, because Nontu needs that on his quest to be the one to get the star of Mitsrayim, which that hasn't been revealed what that is yet. So let's go ahead and move forward in this episode here. Let's begin. For this week of my season 2 podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. For this week, episode 44, entitled Lanko Advances Forward in Zimbabwe. Opening scene. In the fields of Zimbabwe, we see Lanko that emerges from the shadows into the lighted path with 10 Atero guards. For Atero stayed at the top ridge of the mountains, still positioned on the rated call to move forward to where they expect Nontu hiding in the stone clay fortress below. Lanko was en route to speak with someone recently told as undecided of the Southern Allegiance to join forces with Nontu. For the episodes before, Lanko learned a lot of how Nontu has grown in influence in this region, unknown to many, as well as his own superiors of Orion. Suddenly, he sees many soldiers entering on the other end of the pathway as he walked forward. The trees above them continue to periodically obscure above, moving left to right as the wind came across them, but not enough to prevent the obscure rays above beaming down. One of the military guards motioned Lanko to proceed, but only him to further come along to the other end of the pathway. Lanko nodded and followed to complete the path and entered the cave as they motioned to follow as so. To the slight right of them, Lanko could hear water coming downward as the bluest light further in front was coming more and more into sight. Lanko watched the guards leading him to assure his safety, but he knew at this moment he was no way in the position to return back, so he continued on, pushing the fear that rose above him of what domain he was entering. Finally, a man appeared as the beam of Psu made through above him to look at Lanko up and down. One of the guards spoke to introduce Lanko to the person before him. This is our ruler of the southern region, Rulin. Lanko nodded in respect and was about to speak, but Rulin spoke up first to interrupt. I see you are of an Orion, as Nontu. Lanko nodded before speaking. I am so. I come here to get your allegiance. As a Toro from the north agreed against a known enemy of thee. Rulin walked from side to side before responding. It is not Nontu that you seek, or that you should, but King Milan instead. He is here still, from the meetup of all the tribal leaders and rulers of the domain of the Sudan rule, were the Congreto tribal leaders in attendance. Just Kamoon. Lanko looked worried for a moment. That only makes an alliance to my cause of move against Nontu more great, Lanko started, and therefore Rulin interjected. I am not interested in you or your superiors of Orion desire to punish Nontu for the loss of Echo from your scene of authority. Lanko looked ahead, but he was unsure of Rulin reasoning to agree to meet, if not to secure a position of allegiance. He finally spoke. Then you are at a path of two roads to choose. Which way you will lead? For the Kingo hours are soon upon us. Before we move on, Nontu, and capture him as such. Why else he has secured his borders before the fight that he will lose. Rulin did not turn around to face Lanko as the truth floated in the air above them. Meanwhile, back on the ridge mountain outside of the forted area of Nontu, we see Arturo, the northern tribal leader of many forces, and the brother of Sinel, talking to his high commanders as they plan to undertake Nontu, that every moment continue to grow near each moment. Suddenly, there is a leveled ground guard. This concludes this week clip snippet for this episode. If you would like to listen to the full story, please visit my Patreon page. The information will be in the below description. Mostly every week, I will release only the clippet of the short story, and once you become a patron, you will have access to the full short story, what's going on next, and I do plan to release more director clip notes as well as a bonus of releasing a story. Thank you again for joining my podcast this week. Of this podcast, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. So long.